I know, it's great. Thank you. All right, we are live. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, April 6th. And this morning we're continuing to focus on the miscellaneous motor vehicle bill at S99. And this morning we're going to be focusing on mobile identification, which is section 3 in our bill. And with us this morning, we have Commissioner Minoli from the Department of Motor Vehicles. And I think you have, if you want to introduce other folks as we go along, Commissioner, please do that. So welcome back to our committee. And for the committee, we have documents, and for anyone watching on YouTube, we have documents posted on our webpage under, I believe it's under Commissioner Minoli's name. So great, welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again. Wanda Minoli, Commissioner of DMV, for the record. As you are all becoming very familiar with Deputy Commissioner Smith. And I'll let the lieutenant introduce himself. I think he'll be testifying as well, but we have our partners with the Vermont State Police here.
Good morning.
So when we put our proposals together for the DMV miscellaneous bill, I'm going to just step back for a moment. We're going to be talking about the core modernization project language that is proposed in the bill this afternoon. I believe I'm on the schedule after the floor. One of the things that we've learned as we've gone through the development of the vehicle services module is, even though we do our best job to identify statutory language that should be changed to gain efficiencies and be more productive in multiple pieces, we just weren't able to advance all of that language. And that's what we're going to talk about this afternoon. But one of the items, so I'm bringing it back, that we know with the driver service module that is complementary to your Vermont license, your credential, your ID, is mobile driver's license. And so we presented as an administration and a department to the Senate language to allow us to move forward, build, and develop a mobile driver's license program. There was concern in the Senate, and I will be honest, my impression of that concern really focused around law enforcement and the safety of law enforcement and the individual in the card and the protection of the individual's phone. And taking that phone, because there was a perception that you would have to actually take the mobile device, and now the officer would have to take the mobile device back to the vehicle. And I will be totally honest, since that came up, I've done some research that I'm going to share with you. It's limited, that's in the PowerPoint on how we can address that, because the mobile identification and the language we have does set the stage for us to advance and work on the module and advance this service to our residents. However, at some point, we're going to have to come back and have a conversation about mobile license, because even as we call it mobile identification, the document that is going to be used to connect to the systems will be your license. So the information that's on your license and the barcode, if you look at the barcode on the back of your license, that's going to be the common piece of information, even if we call it identification, that's going to go into this identification, mobile identification. I'm starting to call it mobile identification because of this language, but it is a mobile device. So I know Anthea has walked you through this, and so I'm just going to talk about a couple things in the language and then go to the PowerPoint. So the definitions, the definitions on the data field, the full profile, the limited profile, the mobile identification and the mobile identification holder all fits with this concept. If you were to consider license, we would have to modify, I think, 4, 5, and 6. If you decide that you want to advance it a little bit differently. And again, we can work with this, but we're going to be back. And because your residents want this. And again, it's complementary. It's not replacing. It is not the intent of the Vermont Department of Motor Vehicle to eliminate your credential. You have to have that to complement this service. And so I will not reread language to you, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Okay. I just want to, what Section B does is this is really the language that is going to allow the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles to issue the mobile identification to an individual in addition to their credential. And I think there's some parameters that I agree with in 1, 2, and 3. So there's no concern there. 3 does say you must maintain the physical possession on the device in which the mobile identification is assessed during verification. I'm going to introduce you to the scanning opportunities that come with, the FAST system or IDEMIA or the Apple on your phone in the video shortly. And I think Section D is really important because this is authorizing DMV to operate through a third-party administrator, a verification system. So really what it is when we do a statement of work and there more than likely will be more than one app available to people, this is where we authenticate. And so when you set up your system on your phone by choice, when you finalize it, it will be authenticated by the Department of Motor Vehicles data. And that's the connection. And that's why we have to have this language. And that also is protecting the personal information. We're validating, who it is through a number of measures. And I think that's really, really important. And then I think this last section when I'm on lines 3 and line 5 here, again, the individual is going to, it's on line 1, is going to consent what they want to share, and then we verify that. And they establish their profile. And if any of you have Apple on your phone, you could actually try to load the mobile app and go through the process. It will probably stop you at some place. And the reason why it's available is because we have 16 airports through TSA that are already using it. It will stop you, I believe, when you try to authenticate because we're not connected. But, if you have some free time and you want to go in and try that, I encourage you to explore that. And again, this is just, giving direction on limited profiles of what's presented. And again, that's the individual's choice. I think Deputy Commissioner Smith may have talked to you in here, or maybe it was in the Senate, where we had talked about using your mobile app for verification of age to drink. And, instead of handing over all of your personal information, which is your name, your home address, your height, your weight, all of that, you can limit what you share in that scenario. And there's a verification system on the other side that I've told you, I have not shared this with the Senate. Even the restaurants and other businesses, banks, they can have access to that app, which you scan it, and then it tells you it's valid. And it's also interoperable, and it works from state to state. So I just wanted to highlight the language, and I'm going to move to the PowerPoint unless you have questions at this time.
I see a couple of questions, Representative Dodge.
Just a quick one. You said it's interoperable. What does that mean? Sorry.
It's and I probably said that wrong. It is state to state,
Oh, got it.
business to business. There's, and it's a validation, and I have a little slide on that.
Great.
You're welcome.
Morning, Melinda.
Good morning.
Um,
Maybe I have a slide on that.
Keep looking.
No, I can't get my mouse to work.
So what's the problem we're trying to solve?
We're not trying to solve a problem. I'm trying to create a service. I am taking advantage of our modernization system because you want to build in what you can while you're building out the system. And I am, as the commissioner, aware of what is going on in all of the other jurisdictions and what's coming out of TSA. And I don't want to get into Real ID a whole lot, but, TSA has delayed Real ID multiple times because many states have not put it in place. I'm very proud to say Vermont's still at 93% of your residents are Real ID compliant. So it's TSA. We have a population that do not carry wallets or knapsacks or purses. They put everything on their phone. They put their credit cards on their phone. You load your boarding pass on your phone. The phone has become the replacement for many, many people. And so this is just another service and tool. And we can protect the personal information. We can make this work, and it's an option. And with the driver service module, that if everything works out well, hopefully we'll kick off in February. I'm asking for the language now because as we develop the statement of work, I want to include this service into the statement of work. I don't want to have to come back next year and then try to figure out how we can do it down the road. So I'm trying to have a vision. I'm sharing my vision with you, and I'm saying we need to build it now. Doesn't mean I'm turning it on in June or July, even though the language allows, but we have to prepare for this if we want to provide this service.
So you currently have a non-driver's ID card.
Yeah.
How does this differentiate from that? Because you also said, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Okay. You can limit the information on the ID card. And that, I think, differs from the non-driver identification card, but how does all that happen? So two questions, I guess. You currently have a non-driver's ID card. How does that differ other than just going to electronic?
Well, that's still an identification card.
Right.
So I think what's really important, and I always take it back to what did I learn? Everyone thinks all we are is we're about licenses, but we actually issue the official identification for the state of Vermont. Your license, your credential is the common ID. And you just think about when you go to a bank to set up an account. Do you have your driver's license? It is across all states, the jurisdiction. That identifies you. So we take our credentialing system very, very serious as far as, validating it's you. It's that personal information and protecting your identity. It's your identity document. It's not even the non-driver, those IDs. We issue IDs now. We have individuals who choose not to drive. We still validate those individuals that they are who they are and issue that credential. So I think I'm answering your question. So those non-driver identification is still that individual's identification. You can get from the DMV a real ID that identifies this is you without having a driving credential on it. We do everything.
I get that. So, but how would I, when I apply for, and maybe it's in the how would I, when I apply for a non-driver ID, limit the information that electronic?
You don't. So where you, as the consumer using the app, you control what you put into the information that's going to share on your phone. So we're going to do our business the same at DMV. Driving license, real ID, EDL, all of those. Our process is going to be the same. When you go into the app, and this is my understanding, and I'm not an expert yet, when you go into the app, that information is going to be there. There's certain elements that you are going to choose to put in, and then it authenticates with the DMV records. Once it's authenticated, then you can choose, it's in your control what you're going to share. We're not going to say, you're going to share this, you're going to share this, you're going to share this. It is about you, the individual, making those.
You will have some control over what is shareable and what's not. Like if you use this non-driver ID card in a restaurant or a bar, I will not have, if I have one, I will not have the ability to change my birthday. I'm assuming.
That's good. You can't modify the data.
Okay.
All of that is, so the car, I should have brought my license. There's the barcode on your back, and then there's the information. There's going to be, we have to develop the system and tell the system to add this piece to authenticate from mobile ID. So you can't change the content that's on your phone. You can choose to show your birthday. You can choose not to show your home address. Or you can choose to show the whole thing. And really, those are the only elements that you might take your weight. Some people might choose not to put their weight on there, but
John?
That'd be like say you set the app for what you want to show, that would be a case-by-case basis. So if you're going into a bar and I need to show your age, you could show different information than if you're handing it to a police officer who stopped your car.
right. So one of, I think, and I think that's, your PID number. That's your personal identification number. Bars don't use that. Banks don't use that. But that number stays with you and your identity in the state of Vermont forever. And if you received your license or your identification from another state, that number carries over, correct? No, we reissue if they come in? See, I don't know.
Deputy Commissioner Mike Smith for the record. So if I'm a Vermont resident and I've got a license right now, I've got that number, I move to another state, get a license here, if I come back, I would have the same number. But the Vermont number doesn't follow you state to state.
And that number connects with all of your personal information. Go ahead.
But it is case by case.
It's case,
When you're using it for identification somewhere, you can decide case by case what's going to be shown.
that's my understanding. You would be able to go in and modify it, but everyone may choose to take, and I'm just using this for an example, that they may not put their PID number on there because you don't need your PID number for the bank. You need the PID number. You don't even need it for law enforcement if we advance this and they use the scanning app, which we're going to see in the video. So I'm really talking to you about this and asking for your support at a very high level, knowing that I'm looking for your support so we can bring this in to the next phase. And there are some details I just don't know.
Yep.
And I'll be happy to do further exploration if needed.
My other question was, it says here not be a substitute for an individual producing non-mobile credential upon request. So does that mean that if you have the app and it's all on your phone, you still have to have the physical card in your wallet?
And I may turn to Anthea. I believe that is the intent of the language and what the Senate wanted. Is that correct?
So I'm going to Anthea Dexter Cooper from the Office of Legislative Counsel. That is both the intent of Senate Transportation. They do not want this to be a driver's license. That's why it's called a mobile identification card, and why you're required to have your driver's license in addition to the mobile identification card. And you are correct in the reading of the language of this. I think you are.
Yes.
I will say that if you are going to shift, when I walked in, I heard Commissioner Manoli talking about how this could be a driver's license. Other states are having this be a driver's license. I think you would then need to modify the language and make a policy decision as to whether or not you wanted to also include language in statute that requires it be complementary to, in addition to, carried in addition to type language.
Representative
I
Bartholomew.
just say it seems like a great idea, except for that piece. I mean, with that piece in there, what's the point? Why bother so you got it in your phone, but you still legally have to have the card in your wallet. what's the point of doing this?
I think they're setting the stage to make sure it's runs smoothly, there's no issues, and they can come back to us and say, hey, let's, I'm assuming that's.
Commissioner, you want to respond? And then I see a couple of questions. I know Representative Corcoran and Representative Patrick.
So our intent is what you just described, Representative. And as I said, in working, this is new. There are a lot of unknowns, and the Senate was concerned about our law enforcement, and I understand their concern. And they were also concerned that we were replacing the physical card. So I'm here to say, this is a service that complements the card. It does not replace it. We will not replace those IDs. And I think as quickly as these apps are developing and it's just getting bigger and bigger, there are solutions for law enforcement that removes the need to take the phone from the individual. There's also solutions for bars, for any business. They have the same access to validate through a phone or through a device. And that's the newness, right? That's the modernization. That's the piece we need to keep, building. We need to keep building out. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
And I know you have a presentation too, but I know Representative Corcoran.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. With any services, there's usually a fee. Is there a fee to provide this service to Vermonters?
So this is interesting. So right now, first of all, technology is not my thing. And I love that, I'm involved in this great project. So all of you have your Apple Wallet. If you have an iPhone, it's being built into phones and into systems, and there's no fee, right? You can load into that. The FAST system, we're working with FAST. They are the developers of our modernization system. They're bringing out a mobile ID, mobile driver's license element of their software. So that would be embedded into ours. There are some apps out there that may charge, a fee, or may charge me a fee, but we're not far enough down the road to know that. My goal would be to have it incorporated into the services of what we provide Vermonters, and it's a tool that's available for them. But I do also know that everyone may not have an Apple, or have we have to be sensitive to that. But I think that's where the opportunity with our Vertigos, which produces our card, and FAST, we may have other opportunities available.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm just trying to figure out what we're approving. So if there is a fee, typically they are with apps or whatever, you have to upload it. It has to get to our phone somehow. If we approve this, do you have to come back to us and say, hey, there's a $5 charge if people want to pay that?
That's not my goal, and I don't.
Well, it's not their goal. I'm just trying.
No, what I'm asking for is authority from the legislature, because the way that we read the language is we can't just do this. We need to do this in partnership and have your support to advance mobile ID. And what I'm also looking for, you do statements of work in building out your IT projects, and I want to be able to put this in the statement of work on the driver service module that we're moving forward to, because if I don't put it in there, it may be an add-on. So I'm trying to make sure that I have everything in there that I possibly can have for authority.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to figure it out. Thank you.
All right, Representative Couch had a question, and Representative.
Thank you. We're talking about, if you had this on your phone and you didn't have your license, my understanding though, the legislative that you'll always have that 7 days to actually show your license or whatever other paperwork you might be missing. You have that sort of buffer time or that time to come up with it.
You are correct. That is language that was added by the Senate because they were not prepared to at this point, give the broader authority, and because they don't want the officers taking the phone They are creating language that allows them, when they say, I don't have my credential, I may have lost my wallet. I have a picture, I have it on my phone. Our enforcement are going to say, they can't take the phone. So then there's the room that if that occurs, they have 7 days to provide that to law enforcement.
So I know Representative Shaw has a question, and then I'd like to let you do your presentation, because your presentation might answer future questions. So, Anthea.
Oh, I was just gonna add that I believe, and I'm looking this up to confirm, that I believe the current 7-day grace period to show your license is an existing law. That's not something that is proposed to be added. That is what all of the other grace periods are modeled off of. Yes, so section
Thank you.
611, every licensee shall have his or her operator's license certificate in his or her immediate possession at all times when operating a motor vehicle. However, a person cited with violating this section or section 610 of this title shall not be convicted if he or she sends a copy of or produces to the issuing enforcement agency within 7 business days of the traffic stop an operator's license certificate that was valid or had expired within 14 days prior to the traffic stop. So that is current law. The other ones are just model law.
Thank you, Anthea.
So, Wanda, I'm also a little squirrely about issuing an official state ID that the customer can modify. And I think back in, saying, well, this is secure electronically and all that other stuff. Back in the 60s and 70s, we could modify a driver's license by, really love to. And my fear is this a check off the box thing for you? Not for you personally, but I mean, can you say to this vendor, okay, we only want to do full profile non-driver IDs.
So maybe modify is the wrong word. And because the intent, Representative Shaw, is they don't have control of that information. They have the option of what they want to show to protect some of their identity. They can show the whole thing. So it's not, they can't modify it. They can choose not to have their address show on that mobile ID. I think that's the simplest one. And I have to be, I think that there are probably our younger generation in some situations don't want to hand over their identification, where sometimes it's photoed and all of their information is right there.
Well, I get all
And
that.
so that's all, that's the modification. That's the adjustment. It's not adjusting the information or modifying the information. It's electing on what they provide us that they're not going to show. I think that as we get into the statement of work and as we advance this language, and if we determine, I'm just going to use this, that it moves to mobile license, there are going to be elements that we would control that you have to show. But we would figure that out with, our law enforcement, what do they need at roadside? Because again, it's all readable, but I don't want to mislead the committee that, and if I did, I apologize, that they're going to be able to go in and say, well, I want my license now to say W.L. Manoli, not Wanda L. Manoli. That they do not have that option. They cannot manage it. The information that is embedded on that credential and in our record is what will be retained. Did I eliminate your concerns?
No, but that's okay.
Darn, I gotta work on that.
Can we let the commissioner do her presentation, and because we have until 10 o'clock and we want to hear from law enforcement too. So because some of our other
I don't know if they will.
answered, so.
So what I put together was, and as I shared, I've not shared this with the Senate, is just advancing the conversation to mobile IDs. And
we're not seeing anything on our screen. Was that in your intent, Commissioner?
no, I've got it up. So do I have a problem, Houston?
Are you
I'm plugged in.
plugged in?
I am
Usually it's like,
in. My other one came up. Well,
if maybe we'll do the high tech maybe unplug it and plug it back in and see if that works. It's like the turn your computer on and off kind of solution, yeah. Sometimes.
Doesn't she need to be made co-presenter or something?
No, not when you use.
The HDMI
We have a
cable.
very fancy system here, so just.
Yeah, it's not, and the other one came up, that's what's
Is
interesting.
that plugged in to where it needs to be plugged in?
It's one cable.
The other end of the cable.
I think it only fits in one of my slots.
I'm just wondering, where's the other, where's the other?
It's
Whoops.
just,
The other end of that cable.
it goes into,
It's, yeah.
it goes below the table.
Oh.
Oh, come on.
Because I know that where it got jiggled last time, so.
Yeah.
That got where stuff.
So the other option, Commissioner, is for you to join the Zoom room.
Oh, now you are definitely challenging me.
Yeah.
I could also present it and she could.
Oh, could,
Oh, sure, if you want to email, if you said.
I think it's on.
that would be
Okay,
perfect.
so that would be great, Hayden, thank you. Hayden has the documents on our website and you can just say when to advance it.
Okay, I apologize for turning.
No, that's okay, that's great.
I don't want to turn away from the, so music, please.
Yeah. And does it need, okay, well, we'll give Hayden a second. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to go to full screen, but this will work. So we can go to the next slide. So we've really talked about this, and this is just the summary of a mobile ID. And, I'm just reiterating that allows the customer to carry a version of the ID on their phone via an app. And part of this language allows us to explore all of those apps and make it a part of the statement of work going forward. We do not manage the MDL as it is up to the customer. And what I say is what that means is I'm not sitting, our staff aren't sitting in a branch office managing how they do it. It's customer choice. But we establish the criteria and we authenticate. So we would establish the criteria with the third parties. It is a service. It's a courtesy to the customer. It's not a requirement. It complements the physical license, and that to me is really important. We will ensure that we are TSA compliant, so individuals can use it in that scenario. And then I know Anthea's talked about this. We use the AAMVA, American Association of Motor Vehicles, best practices. And on any service that we do and where we're changing, this is our resource. And AAMVA also helps us align with other jurisdictions. So it's really important. And they set really the minimum standards and best practices. You can always add to that. Next slide. And this is not if we could just go back, I'm sorry. This is this is what it would look like. This is just a snapshot of how you scan the front of the ID and then it goes through the app, just to give you an idea. Then next slide. So, I feel like we need to start talking more about the benefits of a mobile driver's license or mobile driver identification. So I just put some points together on the convenience. Smartphone, it's on your smartphone. Some people have their smartwatch. All of this connects, and it's not even the future, it's here now. It's real-time updates. If a customer comes into our office and changes their address, or, if they choose to get married, if they change their name, they change their identity, this will be continual. So you don't have to reload the app. It will automatically update. Ease of sharing. This is ease of sharing your license or your identification. The interoperability this is going to support visitors to our state as well as our residents traveling to other states. And you'll see a slide shortly that 60% of the jurisdictions are across the state are either implementing, piloting, or are in actually using it. Faster replacement. I cannot give you numbers, but I can tell you all that people lose their license and they lose them often. And they are terrified and they call us and, and they have a flight the next day. We do have the temporary paper license, which is acceptable, but they want their credential. They want their credential. So this will give them some ease if they do, if it is lost or stolen. The security, it features, these systems have advanced security features, encryption, and again, I can't even talk. Authentication through DMV to protect your personal information. You choose when you want to use it. It's selective sharing, and it would be integrated into our system. And it can also be used at other businesses. They're across the United States, car rental companies, TSA, your bank. I mean, it's growing. So the next slide. These are just some simple facts and we've talked about this, so, it doesn't replace the physical ID. Law enforcement does not need to handle the phone to retrieve the information. It's an option. No additional personal information is gathered through the MDL. So, and I think that's really important. It's connected to what you are already providing to DMV to create that identification card. And again, it's the Vermonters will still need to have the card. So the next slide, this is just currently from AMVA. These are the states so the states in purple, so 60% are evaluating or implementing. Our states in purple have already done this. The jurisdictions in blue, and there's actually only one, and maybe Vermont will be two, they're looking at implementing, they're building it. And then the green states are legislative studies. There's also an ISO standard for interoperability, which all of the states, and this comes from AMVA, and this is where we partner. So there's continuity and consistency. So eventually law enforcement, banks, hotels, because hotels ask for your identification too. There are commonalities in that. So they're based on they're based on good standards and protecting identity. And then the next slide, please. This, I won't go, this, you can just look at it. These are the 19 airports that are currently, they're calling it pilot, but they are using it. And this is just a picture of what TSA is putting in the airport saying, hey, it's okay, this is acceptable. So they're marketing it. And I just wanted to show that to you. Burlington is not on there yet. So if we can go to the next slide, I believe this is the last one. So based on the conversations in the Senate and the conversations that I've continued to have in talking with our partners, I needed to get more intelligent about the concerns around law enforcement and how does it work. It's important. The mobile device remains with the individual. There is a code technology that is available, which, allows the officer to not have any direct contact with the phone. And then in some situations, you're still going to, they don't have the device, or they may not have access, on their phone. If you click on the center of this video, just click that on.
I don't think it's.
Oh, so it's live on yours. So the one that's available to you on your page, if you click it on, then there's a little bar on the bottom, and this is about a minute video showing how it works. So it's not.
It's actually, I don't think it's embedded.
It is embedded with the one. It's not on.
Even on the one you sent us, I think it's like not.
Let me try just one thing.
Yeah, I tested it. Gosh. It's odd, you have to go below it to play the, oh, this is the best part.
Maybe we can go to the website.
No, because we cut out just the, it's like a 5 minute.
I think I might have it actually.
Oh, great. Do you want me to come look over your shoulder? That could make it worse.
Share.
Let me ask a question while we're doing this.
There you go.
Let's just see if we can do this.
So, like where the phone is, you can click
Yeah, sorry,
it.
one more try.
Oh.
Where the phone is, you can click. That's
There we go.
interesting. Okay.
Okay, now play. Here you go. Here we go. Yay!
And does it have sound?
Yes, it does. Do you want to turn it up?
Turn the sound up on your.
It's got to go up more.
I think it's. So I think on the.
We had trouble with that before.
Yeah, that I'm not an expert at.
Yeah, we had trouble with that.
It might just come through Hayden's computer because of echo, like.
I can turn all the way up.
Yeah, why don't
Try it, let's
Okay.
try it.
Go online, watch that, Earl.
Well, you can, so she's asking for his registration, his insurance, and his identification, his driver's license. And he says, do you accept it, mobile ID? She said, yes. So you just saw that scan.
just with QR code.
And now she goes back to her vehicle and does what she needs to do. And then this one is, so he's approaching the vehicle and he asks for the license, registration, etc. She asks if she may give her license on the mobile device. And he politely says, we don't have access to that. I will need your credential. So it's just showing how you need to carry both, but in these scenarios, it works. It can work. It can work for our law enforcement and it can work for customers. And she doesn't look very happy.
He doesn't either.
But the other gentleman was speeding much faster. I just want you to know. And that was the last slide, just to introduce to you. I'm trying to help. We're in this together, and we're really trying to modernize and advance.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I know we had a couple of questions. Representative Dodds and then Representative Bartholomew.
Yeah, this might be getting very nitty gritty, but I'm just trying to understand. So if at which point are you selecting how much information you're allowing to come through on when you show the QR code? Is it only once? Like, is it at one point when you're downloading the app and you're selecting at that point, and so then anytime you show the QR code, they have access to everything that you've checked off, you'll show? Or when you open the app, you say address?
So the logical place that is going to tell me as we build this out is the application for law enforcement. We'll have to give them all of the information that they need to do what they do today.
Right, in that sense.
And in that sense. So part of the language allows us to build this out. There's still some unknowns but we have to work with our vendor on it. We need to explore it. We need to bring this forward in the statement of work. So I don't have an answer to everything.
And I know we do have Lieutenant Evelyn here too. So I know Representative Bartholomew had a question, and then maybe we will invite you up after this question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Wondering what the polka dots mean on the map.
The polka dots on the map.
Yeah,
I'm
there's-
sorry.
They have dots all over.
Oh.
What is?
They are probably, I don't know. I would assume they haven't finalized. They're right at that's what I would say.
And then
Yes,
the other
fair.
thing is.
Or the color crayon was
On the
bad.
benefit slide, it says having a MDL on a smartphone provides an alternative to carrying a physical license. Evidently, that is not true, what you've said.
It does, it is true.
But you have to have it.
But businesses may accept it. TSA is not going to require you to have your physical. Law enforcement, so the state of Vermont is saying, we are still going to produce it. This is a complimentary service. You should always carry it with you. But there are businesses today, and I will use TSA, that they are not going to require the physical. And I think and we can say to every one of our residents, still carry that. But some people, when the reality is when they go to the store or they go to the doctor or the bank, they may just take their phone. But they have the choice as they do today. They put their credit cards. I think, your insurance card, your credit cards, people are doing this today. I don't know how many of you have your credit cards on your phone. I'd be curious. You can start to just logically connect the service in that way.
Representative Burke?
Yeah, it's interesting that TSA will accept that because if you think about it, that's your credential to get on an airline, in this era of airline safety. And, what are the possibilities of somebody hacking your ID and putting it on their phone?
So you're in control of your credential, so you have to, I can't even try to guess about hacking because again, it's your credential. So do they steal your phone? Do they get into your phone and do they get your password? And do they have access to your credit card and to your ID? Yes, hopefully someone will disconnect their phone and that will change. Identity theft happens every day. And this is another, it might be more secure on your phone instead of someone taking your wallet. I'm going to stop guessing on this.
I think I know the answer.
So, Representative Corcoran and Representative Bartholomew.
Yeah, just had a quick question. I'm trying to understand the semantics of this. So, you said most likely this is gonna be a third party, that's gonna be able to supply your mobile part. Will all Vermonters be automatically, I know they have to choose whether or not they want to do it, but will their information automatically just be uploaded and when they want to opt in, it will be there?
No. When you choose to open the app and sign up for the mobile identification, there's a series of steps you go through. And when you go through that, at some point you're done and then you hit authenticate. That's when it connects with the DMV information and we authenticate that everything's there.
So that's when you pass it along. So it's not done.
We're authenticating it.
Yeah.
We're validating it in the system and we're not passing anything on. We're telling you that we've authenticated, this is you, all of this information is correct. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you go through. And then you choose to turn it on and to use it.
Oh, so there's not like a physical picture that you're sending them. They just have like a boilerplate, like a.
They take a picture of their license, their ID. That's why I know we're calling.
Individual, okay, I guess that's the part I misunderstood.
Yes.
At one point, you're giving them the license.
No, they take their credential and there's a process of taking a photo of that, taking a photo of the back. Then there's a series of, security measures as you go through. So I think to the question of, can I take your license and do it? I'm going to be stopped at some point because of certain information that you would have to respond to. And it could be something that's on your birth certificate on file. I don't know the details yet, but there's going to be different levels of authenticating that is really you.
Representative Bartholomew?
I believe the way this worked, though, to answer your question, is it's more than just a photo of an image on your phone. It's like I can't take an image that he gave me and put my picture in there and pretend to be him. It connects somehow to a system.
Our system.
Right. So if I go to the airport and I show them this thing, if I've tried to put my picture on, there's going to be an issue when they enter it into the computer. It's not just Oh, here's my,
So I will
That's on the
say
picture.
to all of you, when you go to the airport now, if you are Real ID compliant, when they scan your license, the information's already there. That's how, they are verifying, you are coming up on the screen.
Verification process.
It's a verification.
Downloading of information
It's
process.
that little screen that's sitting there is your picture and they're doing this. Same with your
I
passport.
was just gonna say, it's a similar process.
It is the same with your passport.
so it's harder, my point is you can't just change the image and show them this thing and they're gonna believe you. It's more complicated than that.
Correct.
Verification process, right? So-
Yes.
So I know we have Lieutenant Revlin, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner, and you'll be
Thank you.
sticking around this.
Yes, and Mike, we're here to go on, so.
Yes, and I know
with you this morning.
And so Lieutenant, I know we have you here for a few things, but I want to be mindful of your time this morning, so we can,
My time is here today.
okay, well, wonderful, well, appreciate it. Well, welcome to the committee. And since you're here with us why don't we take the opportunity for the committee for us to introduce ourselves to you, so.
Oh, sure.
So I'm Sarah Coffey, I represent Guilford and Vernon.
Pittsburgh and Proctor.
Leonora Dodge, Essex Town.
Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury.
Good morning, Matt Walker from Swanton and Sheldon.
John Bartholomew, Heartland, Windsor, and West Windsor.
Phil Pouch, Heinsberg.
Molly Burke, Brattleboro.
Tim Corcoran, Bennington.
And we have a member joining online this morning, Kate Lally, and I'm catching her off guard, from Shelburne. So I think sometimes it's helpful, oh, and she's saying hello. Sometimes it's helpful for those giving testimony to understand where we live and where we're, the communities that we're representing.
Yes.
So welcome, we're happy to have you here this morning. And I imagine that you have been into the Senate and to testify on this language. So we
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted to, we heard from the commissioner there, I think there are natural concerns about how this would work with, from a law enforcement perspective. And so we welcome to hear that perspective this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it. For the record, it's Paul Ravlin. I'm acting lieutenant with the Vermont State Police, the executive officer of special operations, which includes traffic safety division. So a lot of these bills come through my desk and folks in my shop review them or myself. So I appreciate the opportunity to come down. So in hearing the testimony earlier from Commissioner Manoli and ID is pulled out all the time when interaction with law enforcement. So there's two kind of distinct forms of that, right? If you're pulled over on the side of the road, if you're involved in a motor vehicle collision, anything relating to a traffic stop that requires proof of driver's license and ability and a privilege to drive on Vermont hasn't been suspended. Then there's other interactions with folks, and that's a call to service to their home. And we need to identify the person then. Doesn't involve a verification of ability to drive. So you have an ID purpose there versus verifying ability to operate. So as law enforcement goes, we always need to know kind of the most accurate information on that individual that we're dealing with all the time. So we look for their address, we look for their date of birth, we look for their the spelling of their name. And a lot of that is verifying they don't have any outstanding warrants, any prior involvements with law enforcement. When it's not involving motor vehicle work, we want to make sure that the person who we're dealing with says that's who they are. When it comes to motor vehicle work, we want to verify the person's right to drive. We want to know that, again, they're not wanted. We want to know if they're not missing. We have individuals that get entered into a program. We pull them over and their ID is being missing. So again, we want to verify as much valid information as we can. Sometimes folks aren't the most truthful with law enforcement on the initial approach, so they may give us their friend's name or their sibling's name, and they know that information off the top of their head pretty clearly, so they can give us a lot of that stuff. But when we start getting down to like verifying certain things on the license that we see or information we get back from our ID, then it starts getting off track a little bit, and it helps us realize that we're not dealing with a person they say they are. So I can appreciate the the advancement of technology and understanding what the commissioner was saying earlier was that, again, if someone wants to go into a bar, is it necessary that the bar knows their PID? Is it necessary that the bar knows their home address? So I can appreciate that. So in the wording in the bill that caught my attention was that this program, should it move forward, would not be in lieu of a physical license. It would actually be in addition to aiding in that additional identification to things that are not law enforcement related. So that you can kind of get behind and say, okay, this is something that is advancing technology and it allows folks to maintain some level of privacy in other venues that full identification isn't necessary. Certainly in our business, if I pull someone over in this identification or license, however it may be determined, is the only form is on their phone, I do not, and I can't find a law enforcement officer that wants to take someone's phone back to their car. It just is not everyone's life is on that phone. And for that phone to come back to out of the control of someone's hands, I just see headaches down the road that law enforcement doesn't want. So in addition to complementing current physical hard licenses, it seems like a viable option, but not in lieu of that physical license. That's something that we would support keeping because of all the data that's on that license has been pared down over years. I date myself a little bit, but 19 years ago when I stopped my first car, there was actually more data on the license than there is today. So there's some things that are coming off the licenses that are deemed not necessary for current identification. So there is some awareness that how much data needs to be on that license, but the stuff that is on there now certainly is valuable information to law enforcement.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful to hear from your perspective how you use IDs, like in what, but also like how that language matters to Vermont law enforcement. That it's not in place of, but it's complementary to a physical license. I think we might have a couple of questions. Representative Pouch and then Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that's how it's written, in that you really have to have your actual license, not just the mobile ID. But as there have been discussions amongst the state troopers and other law enforcement in Vermont that, hey, maybe in 5 years or so, we might have in our possession a device that would be able to, suck the information off of that image or QR code.
So as technology advances, so right now, if someone gets stopped in a motor vehicle collision or a traffic stop, or any time that the law enforcement officer retrieves your Vermont ID and brings it back to their vehicle, Vermont is now transitioning into the e-ticket program. Last I knew, we were in the high 60s, low 70% of law enforcement agencies that are now using the e-ticket program. And in your vehicle is a ID scanner. So we take the backside of your license, that barcode's on there, we scan that. And what that does is it automatically uploads all the information on the front to a boilerplate traffic ticket on the computer. So we are aware that technology is advancing. Some of as a demonstration showed on the video earlier, was that the officer had the ability of scanning that at the roadside. So I am not up to speed on what that technology is at the moment, but it's out there, it's happening. Where we are, certainly as an agency and as a state as a whole, I'm not aware of us having that scanning ability at the car, other than having our phones, phones that we carry on ourselves. So if we have a department issued phone, that's not our own personal phone, things like that. So completely aware of that technology is advancing, and that as time moves on, we will be in a position where that may be in our hands and be using that. But current discussions aren't happening on a daily basis that, this is imminent, anything like that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Representative Shaw and then Representative Campbell.
I think I heard you say, you piqued my interest when you said going beyond traffic stops when you go to maybe a domestic violence or domestic assault case, somebody's home or whatever, and trying to get some ID from the individual that you're questioning to make sure it's the right person that you're talking to. So I'm guessing the this form of ID would not be acceptable to one of your folks if they had erased much of the information on it. It just left like your name, date of birth on the card.
So name and date of birth is kind of the basic information that we can start working on. But again, we try to associate that with a photo. We try to associate that with an address. And we start building on information that's available to us from that ID. And the way I understand with these mobile MDLs, mobile IDs, is that it's almost a lot like if you have a weather app on your phone, right? You can choose if you want to show the clouds, the rain, the lightning, the this, and then you can go in and change it the next day when the next storm's coming if you want to see the lightning this time. So it's interchangeable on the use of when you're displaying that ID. It's not a permanent thing. So correct in saying that, yes, the most information that we can gather from that person is the most beneficial to us. And we would be asking them that anyway. What's your address? What's your phone number? What's your date of birth? The PID on your license, sometimes with certain races have longer names, and sometimes the names are superimposed on one another, or it's the same name. There was a gentleman that had like a Muhammad, and then there's a name in the middle, and I'm trying to figure out his first name, last name. How do they write it on their license? So we often go right from the name, we go right to the PID, the public identification number, and we run it by that, because that information we retrieve from DMV would have it correct, and they'd be able to relay that information back to us. So there are some nuances on the side of the road that just generally doesn't aid us in just the name and date of birth, or just the name.
So, okay, I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Okay.
Representative Kimball.
Thank you. I guess I was under the impression that when on a traffic stop, when you took the driver's license back to the car and type it into your computer in the car, that you have access to a whole lot of information about that individual, including, I don't know, past traffic stops or whatever. Is that so?
Yes. So there's actually two programs that are running on a motor vehicle stop. So it's all under one now. Mostly it's under the Valcor system, but the name and date of birth would be run on that person, and that would give us a history of that person. So any alerts that may come up with their propensity to violence, any of their validity of their license, that all shows up under what we call the 27, which is their license record. That's a 10 code, 1027. Excuse me. And then the e-ticket part of that, the electronic ticket part of that, we scan the back of that, and then that is filling that data into a boilerplate traffic ticket.
If you decide you need to issue a ticket, then you have that all filled out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but I mean, sort of, basically you have access to a person's history of interaction with law enforcement right in front of you on your computer. Is that fair to say, or is that?
That is correct. If we run the data that's been given to us verbally, if they don't have any form of ID, or if we run the data that's given to us on the license, we will have access to that data in front of us on a computer if connectivity is there. We run into connectivity issues. So as an agency with Vermont State Police, we are now operating with 2 air cards, both Verizon and AT&T at the same time, so one can complement the other. Even with that, we still run into areas of Buell's Gore, Northeast Kingdom, some places right here in Chittenden County where I live, and coming down on River Road in Jericho, or from Richmond to Essex, you don't have any reception. So yes, barring that, then I have to call it in via radio, and dispatch is reading back to me information that they feel through practice is important to me, such as any threat alerts or previous involvements with an officer may call it out. Do you have any previous cell phone violations? And they'll say, yes, he's had 5. Or do you have any previous, whatever the stop was at that time? So there is ways to communicate. And it's kind of going backwards, right? We go from technology, everything's in front of us, click a button, to old school over the radio.
Yeah. Okay. I guess my point being.
I say old school, so it's
that having a mobile ID would be just the same thing. Would not give you any more or any less access to information than you have now.
It would not provide any additional information that we're already receiving. But as mentioned earlier, if someone chose to have a line drawn in the sand that I'm only showing you my name and date of birth, I'm not going to show you my address.
But they would have to, in the traffic stop, you would think they would have to show you.
Correct. There is, if everything was ABC on a traffic stop, absolutely. But oftentimes we do get individuals questioning why I even need their license. Like, we have folks that identify themselves as citizens that don't recognize authority at all. So there's.
And how does that go?
But again, so there's, if it was cookie cutter every single time, absolutely. But as I've come to know in my career is that, for example, if someone didn't have their physical ID, they're involved in a motor vehicle crash and I got to use the ID on their phone, but it's been smashed due to the crash. Now I can't even scan the phone because the screen's smashed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I think when we're talking complementary with this, it has to remain complementary. It cannot be sole source because we lose phones, cars end up in water, cars end up crashed, phones end up lost and things. So,
So that's great. And I know, I just want to make sure that we are using our time, using your time wisely too. But one last question. What happens, I see Connecticut is one of the states that's moving to mobile ID, and we're close to Connecticut. So if Vermont State Police is not monitoring this, like how will that work out on the road? If Connecticut citizens are allowed to have this mobile identification as their driver's license, what would happen in Vermont?
So if it's sole source, if that's their sole source of ID, there would be a pretty steep learning curve for law enforcement here in Vermont if they had no physical ID for us to retrieve data off from and certainly bring back to our car, because currently as it stands without any means of scanning that roadside at their car door and then transferring that data to a ticket back in the car, I would take their name and date of birth on a notepad, run it via radio, and hope that we're talking about the same person. It's not their twin, it's not a sibling, it's not stolen ID.
My question, I totally understand you, but my question, it kind of begs the question, how we move forward with this as a region, and how, how complicated it is that if all the surrounding states around us decide to do this, or we might decide to do this, it's definitely something I hope that the Vermont State Police will be thinking about too, how we modernize that. And that would, I would imagine, would require investment of new equipment and training.
Yes, ma'am, it would, yes. And as mentioned earlier, if it's not today, then perhaps it's 5 years from now, perhaps it's 10 years from now. But if we take a look at what's happening with technology, and as I predated myself earlier, 19 years ago, I had a hard card, a pen, and I'm writing each box on my ticket. Today, I scan the license and it automatically fills it. So it's happened. If you told me 20 years ago that's what it would be, I'd be like, yeah, I won't be in my career. Well, it is in my career. So I think technology is advancing that way. So yes, that would require us to do some study, figuring out as an agency, does all of Vermont go to one type of scanning method, or does it vary by agency to agency? What works best? How does it communicate to the tickets? So there's a lot of research to be done. And then, yes, it'd be some sort of monetary investment on how to get that technology. Yes.
For today, you're supportive of the language in this section of the bill that's before our committee?
As it states, complementary to and not in lieu of, that would be something that we would support.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. You're sticking it with us. We're 15 minutes behind schedule. So is it a very important question right now, or is it?
Further on the Connecticut piece, do the Connecticut drivers not have to have physical licenses now?
I don't think, I'm just looking at the map that the commissioner sent us, and,
It might already be an issue, and I was curious if it is.
So I think our attorney can answer that question.
I can't tell you what Connecticut law says, but I can tell you, which is what I told you earlier, what 23 VSA section 611 says, which says that every licensee shall have his or her operator's license certificate in his or her immediate possession at all times. I don't know how that would be interpreted with respect to it being a physical license versus a mobile license. But it does go on to say that, you know, you can produce it within 7 business days. So that would apply to the Connecticut operator who doesn't have a copy of their physical license there. It does not speak to what you just heard from law enforcement in terms of the license is not just there to prevent you from getting this ticket under 611. It's also providing a lot of information. So I think there's the logistics piece and the is it violating our law piece. And then of course there's the what's Connecticut's law piece. I have no idea what Connecticut's law is.
So, and I don't think the folks in our room today can answer that either. So, but that's just something for us. We're surrounded by other states. So, well, thank you, Lieutenant. And yeah. So, what would be your preference? We have you here also to speak to other sections of the bill. Would you prefer that the Commissioner? Should you go first and then have Lieutenant, or how would? I have a feeling you've done this dance before in the.
Do you want to hear Mike's testimony first and then?
That works for me. That's fine. We can, Mike can come up and then I can come back up. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for playing musical chairs.
Sure thing.
This morning. Okay, great.
If you need to take a break, we're available.
I think we're gonna take a break in a little bit, maybe in
Okay.
half an hour, if that's.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying we're flexible.
Because I realized we didn't build a break in this morning, so I was gonna suggest to the committee that we take one at 10:45, depending on how many questions you have. So, but if you're dying for a drink, facilities, you can take yours.
Hello again.
Okay.
Good afternoon, good morning.
Yes.
Are you on live still? Yes.
Okay, yeah, I think so. All right, so committee, we're continuing our work on S99, and we're gonna shift our focus to sections 4 through 13, which have to do with license plate stickers and validation stickers. So Deputy Commissioner Smith, welcome back. And there are just a lot of side conversations going on in the committee right now, and I'm having a hard time hearing because we have a blower in the back. So if people need to have those conversations, if we could do it outside the committee, that's fine. So thank you for being with us this morning, and I'll let you present these. I know this section of this bill is connected with the modernization project that's going on in DMV. So welcome.
So thank you. Nice to be here again. For the record, Deputy Commissioner Mike Smith from DMV. So all of these sections surround the validation stickers on license plates. So from a little historical perspective, or I guess for the reason why we are putting this legislation forward or requesting it is as we continue to modernize our system, we want to try and make sure we take advantage of all opportunities to help customers streamline process, better government. So right now you have the ability to through our website to get to a application that will allow you to renew your registration online. This prints out a paper temporary registration that allows you to operate the vehicle for 10 days that's on there, allows you to get the vehicle inspected. While in that meantime, we are generating a registration, the sticker, putting it in the mail, mailing it to you. Conceptually in the future, with this online system that we're putting in, you would be able to renew your registration online at home, print your registration right there, and you're done. We don't need to mail you anything. The reason we have to mail you something is we're trying to get that sticker into your hands. So there's the overall concept. Now a little bit of history, because like Lieutenant Ravlin, I've been around for a little while. So, and some of you will remember this, but way back when, there used to be 4 different color validation stickers for your plates. They were done by year so that you could visually look at it and say, that's last year's sticker, right? So, and I don't really remember the time frame. I think it was in the 90s for some cost savings. We moved to a different vendor to produce the registration stickers, and they all became black and white, period. has some security features on there because it's got your license plate number on it, you know, in font size 4. But it's there. So as we continue to move through this process and look at what we do, what we've done, and where we've come from, when you think about the visual ability to determine if a license plate is valid, it's black and white. You have no way to tell that it is from a different year until you get up to the actual thing. And I brought some little show and tell to show you today, just so that you'll get an idea. The other thing that I wanted to bring forward is right now, in the physical offices, we've moved away from the paper temporary plates and situations. So we will issue you a metal plate and then give you a temporary registration. Saves us postage. I don't have to pay $6 to mail you the plates once you finalize the transaction. But my point there is that plate is on the back of your car for up to 60 days, front and back of your car, with no stickers on it. Absolutely none. And you are 100% legal during that 60-day period while there's no stickers. So again, we're looking at what is the value of the sticker, right? Not from a cost perspective, but from law enforcement and visually being able to see. So I'm going to try not to get dirt everywhere. So thinking about the car driving by and being able to see, can you tell if that plate was valid?
There's not a sticker on it. Oh, there is.
There's
And you're the closest one.
Thank you for proving my point.
But I have my $5.
But, you know, and to really kind of help it out, I grabbed a brand new plate off the shelf. I had a sticker produced this morning. Can you tell if that was valid?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, but the answer is yes. Well, actually, I have my hand over it, so let's try it again. I already gave it away. Yes, it's valid till November of 23. But you can see it. So what's the value of the sticker, right? When we look at good government, getting ease of transactions, ease of processing, cost savings, you know, and it's hard to, now I'm all dirt, sorry. But at least it's on me and not the table, I guess. So, but when you think about, you know, cost savings, I can't put a dollar amount on that right now. Doing away with the stickers, I think Chris did a fiscal note on it. I want to say it was like $19,000. So we're talking small potatoes right now, right? But think about this as we move forward with the ability for you to print this registration at home. Last year, 333,000 people renewed online.
I just did it 2 days ago.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And in the future, I'm not going to mail you anything because you'll print it at home. You're going to print your temporary registration. We have language in here that we're going to talk about next that allows you to electronically show it on your phone. So we might actually save some trees because you don't necessarily have to print it. You can have it on your phone. You print the file, PDF. All of those things become a reality. Right now, when I think we pay, I want to say 8 or 9 cents for the form itself, a 30 some odd cent handling fee through BGS, 55 cents to put it out through the mail, multiple phone calls when you lose it, misplace it, don't have it for inspection. Think about the future where you have an online system where you can go in and print your registration. It's right there. You don't need to call us anymore. Time savings. Again, I can't put a dollar amount on how many people are going to do this because we will still generate paper registrations, right? We will still print and mail some for those that do their transactions through the mail. So it's not all going to go away. But if you think about 333,050 cents of posting, right? You're starting to add up. So.
And I just looked up the fiscal note. It's $15,000 of approximate annual savings for the elimination. Just too bad.
Not sure I can call on her.
And Mike, if you could just talk about the downstream, how many times we touch it, which is not in the fiscal note?
Yes. So if you think about a registration renewal coming in through the mail in our current environment, it's going to come into the mailroom. They're going to send it up to mail processing. We bundle them into bundles of 25 so we can keep track of how much mail's there. Gets distributed onto people's desks. They're going to open the envelope. They're going to look it up. They're going to process the payment, and then it goes into a batch. That batch is then going to move to quality control where they're going to do some checks on it. And then that batch is going to move to data entry. Data entry is going to key it into the system. That night is going to be uploaded into the mainframe, provided nothing rejects. We don't have to do it again. If something rejects, we start the process over. Then it goes to Buildings and General Services where it's printed, comes back to DMV in case there's errors that are found later, and then we put them in the mail. So we've touched this transaction, and pretty much every transaction we do in our current world is touched 5-7 times if it's not, if there isn't something wrong with it. So.
I know we had a question, but I wanted to, are you open to having questions along the way?
I'm at your whim, yes.
Representative Dodge?
No,
Oh, you didn't have a question?
no, I was just pointing that way because
Oh, okay.
Commissioner
Okay.
Minelli was trying
Okay,
to
thank you,
get
okay,
your attention before,
thank
sorry.
you. Okay,
So I didn't really run through each and every section that's here. I know Anthea did that for us the other day. The concept is for support in doing away with the validations on license plates.
so sometimes it's important to, like, who would be against this? I mean, it sounds as if it,
Well, I
from the
think-
DMV perspective, it, you know, really, makes it, the process a lot easier from DMV, but just, yeah.
Be law enforcement.
Yeah, so we'll hear from law
Yeah, yeah.
enforcement, and, yeah,
And I think you're going to hear from VAST as well. Right, so there are multiple sides to this coin. You know, there are people on either side of its validity, its use. But again, I argue based on my dirt. What is the value? Can you see it? Right.
Representative Campbell and then Representative Walker.
We talked about other stickers too, but this is not just for stickers on vehicle license or automobile license plates, right? Is
This is all. So it would be on snowmobiles,
Yeah.
motorboats and ATVs. Now let's go back to motorboats. Okay, so right now, based on Coast Guard regulations, we have to give those big square ones. There's a color for each year, okay? We do a rotating color. So going back to the beginning of my testimony where I talked about little validation stickers, you have the visual acuity of that's last year's color, that is expired. So with the big motorboat stickers, we print a small sticker to stick on there with the month.
In
just like-
addition to.
In addition, so,
and we're
and
getting away from that.
correct, because again, it's not needed from the motorboat perspective. You have your big decal, and if you don't have the big decal, you're gonna have some problems, right?
Great.
But all the other stickers are going away.
So we will be hearing from VAST. We've invited them to come in next week, so I don't expect you to represent their point of view. But, so Representative Walker, you're good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like a little bit of drama and a little bit of the idea of the license plates flying by, but to be fair, your car is parked far more than it's driven, and it stops at the stop sign and at the red lights and at all the traffic pieces, and it is not moving far less than it's moving. So there is a certain amount of investigation, view, and review, and a significant amount of time that's done in a parking lot or in a public space or involved or around the scene of incidences and all kinds of other things. So although I appreciate the drama of it, let's be very clear, that's incredibly delightful. Thank you very much. There's far more to it than just going by it, and we're only on the interstate for a limited amount of time. There's far more to it than going by at 65 miles an hour. So just to throw that out.
Yeah, and we'll hear from, we'll get a chance to hear from law enforcement too. So, so I saw another hand over here. Representative Bartholomew, did you have your hand up, or was it Representative Pouch? I couldn't see. Oh, okay. People were just moving and I didn't see it. Does the committee have any further questions for Deputy Commissioner Smith? If not, I think we'll invite the lieutenant back. We'll, come on up. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry, yeah.
Thanks.
Welcome back in a short time.
Thank you. I apologize in advance. I don't have any dirty plates or anything.
Okay, so we'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah. So I can appreciate the research into technology and advancing, and then also a cost savings to the whole process. As mentioned earlier, there is an investigative value to this. If a car So personally, if I roll up on a car that's been abandoned or in a motor vehicle crash and the operators have been transferred off to the hospital already, my practice is I go up, I look at the plate, I see the sticker, and I verify, as mentioned earlier, the little printing on the bottom is verified to that car. So very quickly, in 4 seconds or so, I can determine that it's probable this car is not stolen, or the plates are not plates aren't P&A, not assigned. So I can, because of, well, I can't rule out not stolen, but I can rule out that the vehicle is probably valid. It's probably plates are assigned to this vehicle and so forth. I can start doing some investigation. Is that the only way I can do it? No, there are other methods. I can go into the computer and run the plates. I can run it over the radio and get the same information. So there is not the sole source of saying, is this car a valid registered vehicle? It's not the whole thing that you hang your investigation on, is that one little sticker, right? So I can appreciate that. And also at highway speeds, it is difficult to see if it's a 22 or a 23 or a 16 or a 19 or an 18. And those were all years that I was on the road. But there is an investigative value to in kind of an urban setting where we're traveling through the town of Essex or Burlington or Rutland, where you're driving and the traffic's a little slower and I'm paralleling the cars and I can look over and see if that car is valid without running it on the computer or verifying it via the dispatch over the radio and say, is this vehicle valid? So as statute states now, law enforcement can run motor vehicle numbers at random without any additional level of suspicion to verify that that vehicle is registered. So in theory, I could sit on the side of a road and run a license plate as it goes by and say, can you run this plate? Yes, it's valid. Can you run this plate? Yes, it's valid. That could happen. Resources today do not allow law enforcement officers to sit around on the side of the road and run just license plates as they come by for validity. It's just, the limited resources we have is not spending it that way. But so there are methods to verifying registration outside of that little sticker. It's not the sole source. Does it aid in some? Yes, it does. Is it the end all be all? No, it isn't.
Okay, a couple of questions, Representative Dodge and then Representative Bartholomew Couch.
Do I have it right that missing the sticker is not a reason to stop?
So a display of sticker is a reason. There's a display of sticker violation. So there has to be the proper display of the sticker, and Title 23 goes into, I think it specifies even the lower right-hand corner. So for example, folks that keep on the decorative little thing around, like my favorite dog's a lab, or I got my car from such and such dealer, that would be in violation if that sticker is obscured. That vehicle could be stopped, and that would be a violation of it, improper display.
Primary reason to stop.
Yes.
As the only or primary. Okay. I misunderstood that from previous discussions then, thank you.
Oh, that's good clarification, yeah. So if there's not, if the sticker is removed, then you cannot pull somebody over.
So as mentioned earlier, there is a period of time where newly issued plates don't have the sticker on them at all. So then we refer back to running the plate via radio, or we run it through our computer system to determine validity prior to that sticker being issued. So again, not the sole source, doesn't end everything if it's not there. And is there some investigative value? There is, but it's not the end all be all.
Okay.
It's as we stand, it would be neutral for us at this point.
Currently, you could pull somebody over if the sticker is not in the right place or not there, right?
As Title 23 states, I mean, there's a lot of, I'd say, archaic kind of things in there that
in practice, you don't really.
Personally, I do not. I've seen stickers dead center of the plate. I'm not going to pull that car over and say, you don't have your sticker in the right spot. But I believe Title 23 states clearly where that sticker would be affixed to the plate. So anything outside that definition, you would be subject to a motor vehicle stop.
So I guess just my point is that if it's not the tool for enforcing law now, then that just seems like it doesn't affect the decision as much, it becomes more of a decision of practicality and cost savings. And, if we can get information on that vehicle's registration status through other means.
So you're for this section is what you're saying?
Thank you for being my confusion translator manager, Tim, Representative Holmgren.
So Representative Bartholomew?
My understanding from hearing from the agency before is that the inspection stickers have the registration information embedded and that system will be hasn't been turned on yet for law enforcement, but will be shortly.
So as
Does that address most of the concerns you've?
Yes, so as the modification of the vehicle inspection sticker advances and that data is readily available to law enforcement, then we'll start, closing some of these holes that exist in that process. But as I mentioned, that little 1 inch by half-inch sticker is not the end-all be-all for us for investigations. It's helpful to us to know that's assigned to that vehicle and that plate's assigned to that vehicle. And once that system is online, it'll just aid in the availability of that data to us.
The inspection sticker.
The inspection sticker with the QR code.
Yeah.
The registration data will be affixed into that QR code that we'll be able to scan. And in speaking with the commissioner earlier, it's data that will be available to law enforcement relatively quickly once the system is fully up and operational.
Thank you.
Great. Representative Pouch?
Yeah, thank you. So it's my understanding many law enforcement vehicles have cameras that read the license plates automatically and pull up the data right there. So
that was a program that did exist. If it currently exists, it might be a couple of Department of Motor Vehicle Enforcement Division trucks. But as the system came out earlier, I'd say late 2000s, 2006, 7, 8-ish. There's a lot of restrictions on the data. There's a lot of concerns about when it's stored and how it's accessed. So there's virtually no law enforcement now that have these LPRs or plate readers. We certainly rely on them extensively with New York. They have them stationary and they also have them on their vehicles so they can help us with folks that we're looking for that are kind of fleeing the state and say, well, this car just passed here. When we had them in practice in my barracks, I actually, there's an Alzheimer patient that was missing from Jericho. We put out an area BOL, be on the lookout. We entered them into NCIC, which is a national missing database. Stowe Police was running an LPR. It actually alerted on this vehicle about 7:00 that night. And because he was listed as missing, and as he drove by, the Stowe police officer automatically alerted on his computer, hey, this car is entered into NCIC as a missing individual. And we had receipts in his car he spent all day in New York trying to figure out how to get back to Jericho, and he was in Stowe. And it was due to Alzheimer's. So there were some benefits to that program. We just, for purposes outside this committee and my input, it's not something that we practice here in Vermont.
sort of some legal
Concerns about validity of the information, storing the information, access to the information. People were concerned about the collection of it and stored by law enforcement agencies. And we had a lot of policies that we had to go through to access that information, like to a burglary or something like that. So there was a lot of things in place. It just wasn't something that actually came to light and became steadfast here in Vermont.
And so I was wondering if it actually read the little sticker.
It did not. It read the license plate, and then the information associated to that plate would be fed back to the validity of the registered owner, whether they're wanted or not, whether they're entered into a missing database, things like that.
And whether the registration is up to date.
Valid, correct.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Okay. Anthea?
I was just gonna flag for those members who are new to the committee and new to the General Assembly, the two statutes, they're, I think, 23 VSA section 1607 and 1608 on ALPRs. They are set to sunset next July. That has been extended by 2 years every year since the statutes were enacted. And there is a reporting requirement that gives you data about who's using it in the state, and you can sort of see from a historic perspective that it's dropped off. So I think you will have to talk about that, if not now, a year from now, when you're trying to figure out what to do with that sunset and House Judiciary is very strongly about that.
Thank you, Anthea. Representative Bartholomew.
ALTR.
ALPR, automated license plate,
Thank you.
right? I think it's
Reader.
recognition, not.
We say reader, but it's, I mean, that's what, I mean, that's.
I think everyone uses the acronym, either LPR or.
LPR is how we say it, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? This is terrific to hear your perspective on all that. It kind of helps flesh out the picture for us. I don't see, go ahead.
So did I understand you to say that you're neutral on this question about whether you drop the stickers or not?
We would remain neutral in the fact that we can appreciate the fact of the cost savings and the reduced man hours involved to just replicate or produce just one registration. And as testimony earlier said, we're talking almost 400,000 for the state. We can certainly appreciate that. I also appreciate the piece of that aids in investigation. So we wouldn't say that we're against it at all. We appreciate the advancement of all this. So at this point, remain neutral.
Just want to be sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Well, with that, do you have another
I
question?
just have a quick, I
Absolutely.
just think that if there's a wishy-washiness around the application of the law on these things, I think removing that and just making it, across the board, this is the practice, this is how we deal with all vehicles in all situations, it kind of makes sense to me, like everybody has the same, experience.
And does this, and with this,
So in other words, getting rid of a sticker that sometimes is, sometimes can be used as, like
for a stop.
reason for a stop or not, I just think it'll make everybody's life easier if there is across the board a common practice. So I would support it for that reason.
So every violation in Title 23 is certainly is written there and it's in black and white, but there is a level of officer discretion that occurs. And that is both up to how it's written and usually less than that. We can't certainly impose more than what's there. So oftentimes there's a discretion phase in there where it's like, I pulled you over because let's say your inspection sticker was expired. However, you telling me you're getting an inspected, you're on your way to, or you get an appointment. Okay, here's a warning, go get it inspected. Versus, so that discretion exists. So something like with the sticker, it's saying that it must be affixed in this lower right-hand corner. And if it's in the center, could I stop them? Yes, I could, but I don't. Again, that discretion exists. But again, if it's not there at all, then yes, it's an easy fix. We don't have the sticker. We're not stopping them for anything, right? It's not in the wrong corner. It's not in the center. It's not being blocked by the little ring. So yes, I appreciate that, but it's hard to say that it goes to, we can clearly define in a box how every motor vehicle interaction will go. But, committees like this and proposals like this will help aid in, if it doesn't exist, then it doesn't happen at all, right? I can appreciate that.
Without any more questions, I think we should take a little break. We haven't scheduled one. So I appreciate your time this morning.
My pleasure.
And I think, are you sticking with us after our break? Oh, yes. So so let's be respectful. Let's be back in our chairs in 15 minutes, so at 11 o'clock, and we'll